My name is Natali, and today I'm going to talk about African asylum seekers in Israel. So, let's start. So, like I said, for my paper, I choose to focus about asylum seeking in Israel, particularly by African refugees from Sudan and Eritrea. So the reason why I chose this topic is because I know this topic fairly well since I grew up with refugees from Sudan and Eritrea. But long story short, I grew up in a quite diverse neighborhood with immigrants from post-Soviet countries, the Philippines, Sudan, and Eritrea. We share schools and community centers, and I learned about their backgrounds and struggles, and including the threat of deportation throughout the years as I grew up. Israel hosts around 45,000 African asylums who arrived between 2005 and 2012. They did that by crossing the Sinai Desert, which is in Egypt, after a challenging journey, just walking through the desert from Sudan to Israel. Many escaped genocide, war, and persecution. Eritrea specifically is known for its oppressive government forces citizens into a visa army conscription with severe punishments for dissent. Many Eritreans had to flee as a result of these conditions. However, what was Israel's response about this? Even after reaching Israel, unfortunately, the asylum seekers still were struggling. The asylum seekers had to face complex conditions that limit their access to protection and stable life due to inadequate government policies. Gaining asylum is basically nearly impossible in Israel, with less than 1%. I read somewhere that it's like even around 0.15%, which is absolutely nothing. Despite many refugees integrating into society, still Israel have a hard time accepting them. Many lives under the threat of deportation and must renew their temporary group protection visas every 3 and 6 months, which I imagine is very frustrating to these refugees. Eritreans and Sudanese refugees face a negative public perception because there were incidents involving those refugees, particularly in the south of Tel Aviv, that has to do with crime and rape. So therefore, they were labeled by some as criminals and rapists. And yeah, since Israel is a predominantly Jewish country, 75% of the population is Jewish, and is, yeah, overall fairly homogenous society. Yeah, so they were seen as the threat to Jewish identity. So in Israel, those refugees are often categorized as inflators and subject to policies aimed to make them leave, including detention and the deposit law, which she sees as part of their salaries, and they're gonna get that part of the salary only if they leave Israel back to their country, or just leave in general. And there was also attempt to deport them to third world countries like Rwanda. So these strict policies force refugees into lives of poverty and uncertainty. The key questions are whether these actions are justified against all of the refugees, even those who are not involved in those criminal acts, obviously including children. Or only those who are involved in such acts should be deported. So how I will explore this, I will tell about the story of the Sudanese woman who lives in Israel for 11 years. And from there, I would draw the conclusions based on her experience and a few more evidence and experiences. But here are my main arguments and points. Point one is inadequate asylum process, which, like I said, less than 1% asylum seekers gain status despite efforts to integrate. Point two is ethical and humanitarian concerns. Living conditions. So, like I said, the refugees, they live in poverty for the most part, and they have a lack of permanent status. They don't have any specific status like permanent resident or citizen. They're just like in the middle, or not even in the middle. And negative perception. Our trans-Sudanese asylum seekers face unfair criminal labels, increasing marginalization. And point three is harsh policies and their impact. Punitive measures, detention, the deposit law, and deportation efforts, and inhuman and create fear. Impact on lives. These policies force refugees into poverty, insecurity, contradicting human rights values. Therefore, these points are gonna be explored in my paper. So as you can see, here are the evidence and findings on Israel's asylum policies. Long story short, they examined Israel's current immigration laws and asylum policies, including approval rates and temporary protection, an ethical and humanitarian review, impact and evaluation. We've seen statistical data that less than 1% receive asylum. Policy documents, public perception, case studies, and the findings, inadequate asylum process, ethical and humanitarian issues, harsh policies and negative impact, and need for reform. So in conclusion, we concluded that these strict asylum policies of Israel have a very significant impact on those refugees, and this poses significant challenges and hardships to the refugees, especially since the current low approval rates and temporary protection measures create ongoing instability, preventing refugees from fully integrating into society and overall lead a full life. And laws such as the deposit laws and the threat to deport also pose hardships on those refugees. Therefore, we need to look for more human and stable solutions. And yeah, that is all for my presentations. Those are the citations, and thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it.